to create and market the technology to use certain frequencies for inducement into the brain proves that technology does exist and is being used in one form or another for mind control. We suspect that the Illuminist government of ours currently is able to control the minds electromagnetically of the people whom they have individually programmed. However, our government is also moving full speed ahead to the point where they can program minds in mass prior to the time when they actually want to begin controlling minds of the entire populations. From the U.S. patent website, we can see that this inventor references scientific work done as far back as 1962. Therefore, we know that certain segments of science have been working steadily on this project to control the minds of the people since then. Certainly, a silent, subliminal presentation system utilizing electromagnetic radios, which no one can see, hear, or smell, would certainly hold the promise of controlling people's minds. In other words, you can't see or hear or smell radio waves. They're invisible. Further, if none of the slaves knew that they were being manipulated, or how they were being manipulated, you have the potential of people living in slavery without realizing they were even slaves. How delicious this prospect must be to the Illuminists, who want so desperately to control the entire population of Mother Gaia. We published a news report 1344. Now, you can actually key these in to the search site or even on the internet. 1344, like Cutting Edge. The thing about Cutting Edge, though, is most of the articles you're going to try to access, they're going to ask you for your subscription. It's like $25 a year. And I think it's money well spent because they've got a tremendous amount of... Plus, if you do that, they actually send you it's like a CD-ROM of the whole website on a CD-ROM that you can have. So if, like, let's say the internet goes down, you can still have all that information. Now, I'm not saying I agree with every single thing David Bay says, okay, about every issue. But there are certain things that they really are on the cutting edge about. And I've much of their research has been very confirmatory to my own. I understand they don't take, the stance they take on the King James Bible. I don't agree with that, okay? But, again, ministries that are on the internet, there's no way you're ever going to agree with every single thing they say. The Bible talks about that we see through a glass but darkly, but then face to face. So you're not going to always get, usually you're going to get some form of things that you're really not going to agree with almost every online ministry. So just kind of giving you that as a proviso there. So when we published news article 1344 depicting the occult map of 6 school shootings, and then tied these shootings to elevated levels of HAARP. In other words, elevated when they were you can actually document HAARP. Okay, in other words, there's certain things that people have out there, certain sensors that they have where we can actually document how much energy it's pumping out. And we're going to talk more about that. But they received a lot of skeptical emails regarding the subject. People could just not and would not or did not want to believe that the human mind could be so manipulated. And I completely understand their reluctance to believe so. They did not want the terror of thinking that they could be controlled by leaders hostile to their well-being. People in the Nazi era simply reacted to overwhelming evidence that Hitler was achieving dictatorial powers and that he was deadly serious in his published threats in Mein Kampf to murder Jews, Christians, and other people. So, in other words, the people in the Nazi era acted similarly. They didn't believe it when Hitler published all this stuff. In the news groups, in the news group Newshawk, we have found corroborating evidence that this type of silent sound electromagnetic radio transmissions was culpable in at least one of the school shootings on this map. This could well be going on in other regions of the United States as well. In fact, we at Newshawk believe this almost certainly is the case and that very likely a factor in the unheard of, unprecedented increase of mass murders which have been occurring throughout the U.S. in recent years. Highly respected author Alex Constantine, one of the preeminent researchers into the covert government's many mind control projects, specifically told Newshawk that silent sound transmissions were directly involved in the Jonesboro, Arkansas mass shootings in March of 1998. So this has been around for a while, okay, the sound of silence technology. And in other words, they're basically saying the government's had certain things where they've kind of tested it out. We tested it out in Iraq, Desert Storm, to the Republican, to their guard there. And we've tested it out in various things across America, and what they're trying to do is kind of document that. As we demonstrated in our article on the satanic school shooting map, highly elevated HAARP levels preceded. So highly elevated HAARP levels preceded most of the school shootings at least 3.5 to 13 hours prior to the beginning of the shootings. And again, you can document this if you have the right equipment. In a couple of the shootings where the elevated levels were moderate, they were still elevated over the norm. Our webmaster viewed dozens of the days to see what the normal HAARP levels were. Evidently, there's websites out there that publish what the HAARP levels are for a given day or time. And discovered that the norm for the signal, was for the signal to remain very flat horizontally. Even slight elevations of electromagnetic fields seem to be able to produce a killing response in the person previously programmed. These are people that are already programmed. Now, they've got a TV show on now. I don't know. It's that Christian Slater guy. And it's Edward and whatever his alter ego is. And he's basically a mind control slave. So Hollywood is really telegraphing a lot of punches here. And this guy goes around and he flips back and forth between different personalities. And Edward is one personality and the other one is the other. And one of them is a secret covert, like top-level USA spy type of guy. And the other is just the normal guy that lives at home with his wife. And they're obviously intertwined, and now they're both aware of one another, this type of thing. But he's a mind control slave that the government programs, essentially, and he does their bidding for them. So this is the whole MK Monarch mind control project that, Fritz Springmeier's talked about and has been documented in many, governmental declassified types of things. It exists. The government's participated in this for years, particularly after Project Paperclip, after we brought over a lot of the Nazi scientists that worked at fun places like Auschwitz and these, and I'm just saying that tongue-in-cheek, but I'm saying they brought these scientists over, these unbelievably debauched, demon-possessed, you talk about not having a conscience. They brought over these Nazi scientists and the ones that did the medical experiments at Auschwitz and these Nazi prison camps, and we employed them in the employment of the Americans, and they continued a lot of their experiments here via Project Paperclip and the Monarch mind controlling program, and a lot of this stuff that they've refined and honed to what they have today. There's tons of people walking around among us that are of this persuasion, that are basically programmed. And there's a lot of books that document this. And there's a lot of people, not a lot, but there's some that have actually broken free from this programming. And they've come out and been, most of the time, been ridiculed, and there's no merit to any of this, and these types of things. But it's the whole thing about, like, the whole Manchurian Candidate. Why did they make those movies? If Hollywood's saying something, usually they're doing it in the military on one level or another. What better tool of Satan than a mind control slave? He's not going to give you a whole lot of problem if he's just carrying out programming. You're not going to get a lot of lip from somebody that's just totally been programmed to carry out and to perform a certain function. Well, now with technologies like HAARP, they have another way to actually add to that. So, going further here, we discovered earlier this year, as we were doing research into school shootings, that the shooters had one common factor. They were also participating in occult activities. In fact, most of them were so into the occult that they were feared by the rest of the student population. Now, this is another thing that opens the door to mind control and to be manipulated by the devil. Whether the devil's going to use technology to do that or a combination of technology and demons, the more the merrier for him. One of these Christian researchers said that these shooters were not only into Satan worship themselves, but were also victims of generational witchcraft. This term means that